This is a method I've wanted to try for quite some time, but I haven't just because I've got plenty of space in my garden to grow it right side up. But I was just at a show and someone asked me, hey, what would you do if you had a north-facing patio with almost no sun? And I said, get something to grow really high up and maybe even try something upside down. So I figured that's what I do in this video for you guys. This is a Roma tomato. You don't need a lot to get this project done. You need a tomato. I like Roma. I like a determinate or bushing style tomato, one that's not going to grow indefinitely or indeterminately. So to me, a little Roma saucing style is a great choice. You need some sort of bucket. This is just a standard 5-gallon bucket. You'll need a couple tools. I've got a hole saw to drill a hole in the bottom. I've got a drill bit to drill some drainage holes. And then I have some burlap and string to hang it up. So let's get it going. It could not be simpler than flipping this bucket over. We'll first drill the hole that our tomato is going to come out of on the bottom, because we're going to use the handle of the bucket to hold it up. So we need the tomato coming out of the bottom side. So flip it over, grab your hole saw bit. This is a 2.5 or 3-inch hole saw, and just come in and drill a hole. So there is the hole my tomato is going to come out of. I do want to make sure that I don't drown this tomato though, so I'm going to drill some drainage holes in with a 1/4-inch drill bit. That's all the construction we really have to do. The next thing I'm going to do is grab some burlap. You could use cardboard. There's a million different materials you can use, but basically we need something to hold the soil that may fall out of this hole once we flip it upside down. So I'm just going to lay it over here and cut a circle of burlap to size, and you'll see how I get the tomato through this. Okay, what we're gonna do now is cut an X right in the middle. So the easiest way to do this is just fold it in half and make a cut right in the middle like this. And then we'll fold it in half the other way and do the same thing. So now we have this little matrix that our tomato can slot through, but it'll still hold that soil, and you'll see how that shows up in just a second. So the next thing we need to do is prepare our tomato. Remember, it's growing upside down and we need to get it through this hole. So we can compress this and definitely get it through. But if you remember from some of our other experiments we've done on this channel, tomatoes have the ability to produce roots along their stem. And there's quite a bit of foliage down here that would just be buried if I was to put it through. So I'm gonna prune that off just to clean this bottom up a touch. So I'm coming through scissors or snips and just taking a little bit of that off. That'll make it easier to get the tomato through. Then I'll look at the roots. I see some pretty healthy roots here. I don't feel like I need to do anything in the way of loosening these up. So now I just need to get the tomato through. So my first step is I'm gonna throw the burlap down in the bottom, and then I'm gonna thread the tomato through. And this is really the only hard part of this whole process. The good thing about tomatoes is you can be a little rough with them, and you can also see how that burlap kind of holds that soil in place, which is nice. And also the tomato's roots are holding that soil in place as well. So now what I'll do is I'll just hold it off the edge of a surface like this so I don't break the stem. And it's probably easier with a friend, but you can manage this solo. Use the best potting mix that you can find and just gently scoop it in here. The beauty is you don't actually even have to fill this bucket all the way up if you don't want to, though I probably would, just for the sake of the health of the tomato's roots. And the cool part is, once we hang this up, you'll see how this becomes a top-bottom planter, because of course the top of this is open, and you would normally plant a bucket like this with all sorts of different stuff. So maybe we'll even throw a little goodie on top. Next up, I've got some paracord here. Just choose something that can hold the weight. I would say something like 30 to 50 pounds, just to be sure. I'm folding it in half and I am looping it around the handle here. And then I'm gonna take the 2 open ends and slide them through this loop, and I have a nice knot that will never undo. And now we got to bring it into the greenhouse. So what I have here is a carabiner, and of course this depends on what surface you're tying it to. You could use eye hooks. You just need to make sure that whatever you affix it to can hold this much weight, because remember, it's going to be soil, tomatoes, and water. It can get pretty heavy. So what I'm going to do is just do an overhand knot here. So throw these 2 through like you're tying a shoe, basically, just like that. And then I'm going to clip the carabiner right underneath that, just like this. And then for extra credit, because this is a top, I'm just gonna throw a couple lettuce in and see what happens. This is nice too, because it'll help keep the moisture in this mix, because this will basically be a living mulch. Now carefully, and maybe get some help from a friend here, bring this up and connect this to where you plan to put it. In my case, I've got it in my greenhouse. I have an eye hook on the channel here, and I'm just going to do that. And I have my upside down tomato. Of course, the next thing I gotta do is water it in. We'll give it just a touch of water here, and we'll see how this goes. The next check-in, I wanna see how it's forming. Is it trying to grow upwards or not? Is that okay or not? what kind of pruning we might do, and even if we're gonna get some early fruit. Well, you caught me top watering my upside down tomato because something I put in here was lettuce at the top, and I'm pretty pleased with the way that it's growing. So you can make a lot of extra productivity out of a space like this by just throwing something leafy up here. I can rip these out and eat them, replant them if I want to, but we're here to talk about the progress of the upside down tomato. I have to say I'm pretty pleased. It's growing in a weird way because of course the tomato wants to be reaching towards the light, and the light source is actually the sun, which is this way. So you're gonna see it start to do a little bit of this action. So let's see if we can trace down where the actual main stem is. And this is what's kind of interesting. If I look, you might be thinking this is the main stem down here. This is actually just one really big leaf. And the main stem is, yep, it's kind of moving out this way towards the sun. So it's doing a bit of a U shape, but I am starting to see some early flowers. I've got a cluster right here. I have another cluster here, and maybe, yep, I've got another one right over here. So everything looks healthy. It's growing a little weird, but the plant itself looks fine. So I should have some cherries here pretty soon. We'll see how they go. We're at an interesting point in the upside down tomato grow because we have our bonus lettuce up top that we can harvest, which is great. But you'll notice, like I mentioned, it wants to go up because the plant wants to go towards the sun, but the weight of the now fruiting tomatoes, you can see them right here, is actually pulling it back down. And when I get good fruit set on this tomato, like I am right now, it's actually kind of resetting the plant to grow truly upside down, which I didn't expect to happen. So I would say on tomato varieties that are heavier, like this one is not necessarily heavy, but there's a lot of them that are pulling it down. But if you were to grow like beefsteaks or something, it would probably just pull the tomato perfectly upside down. And it's growing a lot better than I expected for a method that sometimes seems a little bit silly. But let's go ahead and harvest our lettuce here just to see what we get. It's a little bit of a bonus harvest out of the top of this. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, this is a great yield, and I'm very optimistic about the tomatoes down below. They're fruiting. They're not quite at the point where I think I could harvest them. They're still green. And another bonus I didn't consider when I first started this grow is that if you're dealing with things like powdery mildew, any sort of soil-borne disease or pests like root knot nematodes, this pretty much prevents them from happening at all. I'm 4 feet off the ground here. There's no soil-borne diseases that are coming in on this tomato. So we'll check in once we start to fruit here, and I'll give you my final score on how I think about this method. Our upside down tomato experiment has turned out a lot better than I thought. First of all, we need to see what they taste like because of course, that's why we're growing these tomatoes. So beautiful little tasty guy right there. That's actually quite nice. Now, why am I surprised by this? Well, there's a couple reasons I think it could be really good for you. First of all, if you're a small space gardener, balcony, small townhouse, kind of covered back patio type thing, this gets the tomato up off the ground, lets sun hit it sooner, especially if you have some sort of fence situation. You'll get some actual sun on it. Of course, it needs a lot of sun. I don't see almost any evidence of serious disease on the leaves, which has happened to me in the past with my in-ground tomatoes. And I got a couple harvests of lettuce off the top of this. The only thing I'd say is grow that determinate. Don't grow an indeterminate one that's gonna keep going forever and ever. Grow one of those bushing style tomatoes. Maybe grow one that's not a cherry, so some of the weight and the heft of those tomatoes as they plump up starts to pull this structure downwards so it doesn't keep trying to go up, because that's what it's gonna genetically want to do, and also environmentally, it's gonna start trying to go towards the sun. The Roma style helped pull that down a little bit. I was pleasantly surprised by this. This experiment went from probably a gimmick to actually a viable way to grow tomatoes, especially in a small space. If you do want to experiment with growing tomatoes in ground and you're wondering what to bury under them, check this video out here where we buried 6 different types of food scraps, and we found some pretty interesting results. And until next time, good luck in the garden and keep on growing.